Hello and happy fall, everybody. So this week we're going to be diving into some fall themed decorations. I don't just want to show you how to make things, but I want to show you how to make things pretty. So this week I thought it would be really fun to just try and make royal icing and do fall decorations for cookies this year. Everybody loves making cookies no matter what the season is, and decorating them is half of the fun. So for this recipe, or this video I suppose, I'm going to be doing two different kinds of royal icing. Royal icing is normally made with egg whites, which of course isn't vegan, so I've got some different alternatives that I'm going to try and replace it. If you don't know what royal icing is, when you see a decorated cookie and it's all smooth and shiny and it's got the pretty colors and the faces and things on it, that's royal icing. It's powdered sugar and egg whites whipped up together in order to make this coating that covers your cookies that's still edible so that they're pretty too. One of the recipes I'm going to be following uses something called aquafaba, and all that is the water that comes in the can of chickpeas. So if you just drain that out and set the chickpeas aside, there's your aquafaba. It whips up the same as regular egg whites do. The other recipe just calls for powdered sugar and water and corn syrup, and I'll show you everything that goes in it, but I figured this one would be easier to do just in case you don't have a mixer that can whip up aquafaba into soft peaks and that sort of thing. The water alternative will be good for just things you have on hand at home or something you can run to the store real quick and get. I'm going to try and draw a few different designs this week. I'm going to go for a leaf, a pumpkin, and maybe a bat or a witch's hat. We'll see if I can do it. I do have some experience with royal icing. I have decorated with royal icing before, but I'm not a master at it, and this is a chance for me to get better at it, because before, when I used it in the past, I made my own powdered sugar by blending up sugar in a blender, and it was chunky and it wasn't as good as it could have been. So this time around I'm using just regular powdered sugar, pre-powdered. I'm not trying my hand at it, so that way it's smoother and we get a better result. For our royal icing that contains aquafaba, we're just going to need powdered sugar, corn syrup, light corn syrup preferably, a little bit of lemon juice or some sort of extract, and aquafaba, which is water in the can of garbanzo beans or chickpeas. For our water-based royal icing, we're also going to need powdered sugar, corn syrup, water or plant-based milk, and an extract with which to flavor your royal icing. For this demonstration, I'm going to be practicing on little pieces of parchment paper instead of cookies because A, it's a good way to practice without wasting food, and B, I don't really have a lot of people around to just eat cookies if I make them, so I'd rather do a low cost and low waste decoration of cookies today. You're also going to need a sifter of some sort to make sure that your powdered sugar doesn't have any clumps in it when you're sifting it in. I technically don't know what this tool is called, but I do know that it's used when decorating royal icing to bring the icing into the corners and make sure everything is sharp and clean and smooth. I also have some food dye here. I double, triple checked to make sure that this brand was vegan, and I even called the company. They said they were vegan. And of course, you're also going to need pastry bags so that you can pipe the colors onto your cookies. Both of these royal icings are pretty easy to make, so I'm just gonna get started with the first one that is aquafaba based. I'm just going to drain the aquafaba out of my can of chickpeas and add it into my mixing bowl. Then I'm going to need to mix it on a medium to high speed so that it can get a lot of air in it and get really frothy and bubbly. As you can see, my mixer, the beater doesn't reach all the way to the bottom of the bowl, so I'm going to go in with a hand mixer and whip it up. Once it's gotten to a consistency that's a lot thicker, and it's what's known as soft peaks, so it'll come to a loose point when you pull it up. It won't be sharp and pointy, not too stiff. Then then it's going to be ready for you to add in the rest of your ingredients. Once it's gotten to the consistency you like, you're going to sift in most of your powdered sugar. Once again, it's important to sift it because you don't want to get any clumps in it when you're going to pipe your icing for your decoration on your cookies later. Mix in the first batch of sifted powdered sugar until everything is combined and it looks smooth and glossy. You're going to add in your last little bit of powdered sugar and your corn syrup or agave if that's what you're using, and whatever extract and flavoring you're using. This one turned out pretty thick, which would be really good for the outlining or writing, that sort of thing. It's going to be able to hold in the bulk of the icing that is looser, that fills it in with the colors, and I'll explain that later. But this is our first one done. It's shiny, it's stiff but not too stiff, and I'm just going to cover it and set it aside while I work on the other one so that it doesn't dry out. If you do realize that your royal icing is getting a bit thick, just add a little bit of milk or water, no more than a tablespoon at a time, to loosen it up a little and get it to the thickness you like. Adversely, if you find that your royal icing is too thin, all you have to do is add some powdered sugar into it and it'll thicken up nicely. Just make sure that it's sifted so it won't be too clumpy. The second version of the royal icing is also going to be super easy to make. You're going to sift your powdered sugar into the bottom of your mixing bowl and then just add the rest of the ingredients in on top and mix it up until it's smooth and shiny just like the other one. This one is turning out to be a bit looser than the last one, which is not bad. I'm going to use that for what's known as flood icing. That's going to be the icing that floods the center of the cookie. Since it's a lot looser, it's going to be faster and easier to fill in that large space with that icing and maneuver it into corners and things like that to get it up to the edge of the outlining icing. My next step is going to be to separate my icing into however many colors I think I'm going to need and start dyeing them before I add them into my piping bags. As you can see, the smaller the tip on your piping bag, the better. I cut my orange tip a little bit too big, and that's why it's coming out so thick. As you can see from some of the other ones, it comes out thinner and it's easier to direct when you have a smaller nozzle to work with. When you're flooding, you also don't want a huge nozzle or a huge opening because you don't want to over flood your design to where it spills over onto another color that it isn't supposed to. Definitely be patient when you're decorating actual cookies. This is a great way to test out a design, test out colors and that sort of thing before you actually put it on your cookie and give it out to people. It's okay if it doesn't turn out perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. When you're doing this sort of thing, it's really just for fun, so have fun with it. That's why I did all sorts of crazy colors and that sort of thing, because it doesn't have to be a strict, specific kind of way. I think I like working with the thicker icing better because it's easier to control, so I would suggest using outline thickness for everything. It's loose enough that you can fill your design, but also thick enough that it works as an outline, so you don't have to worry about it spilling out or being too difficult. And they turn out pretty much the same. The only difference is one was looser than the other, and I don't really prefer that. So for me, I'm probably going to end up using the aquafaba technique more than the other one. Eventually, I do want to make these nice enough to be able to give to people, so that's just my preference. Thank you so much for joining me this week for my vegan test kitchen as we tested out royal icing and decorations for the spooky season. I really hope you liked it. I hope it was informative, and I hope that you practice this yourself and that you get to try it. Definitely share your designs with me if you decide to make this royal icing, and let me know which one you prefer, or if you have another method that I could try that you think is even better than the ones that I tried today. Don't forget to check me out on social media at MyVeganTK. There will be links down below for that. There'll also be a link to my Ko-Fi. I put unique projects there, videos that I don't post on YouTube, and a bunch of other stuff. If there's anything else you'd like to see, put it down in the comments below and I'll be happy to try it out. Another recommendation I would make is wearing gloves. I don't know if you can tell, but my fingers are super pink because I was handling the dye without gloves. So gloves and an apron are gonna be really important for this sort of thing. For now, that's all I've got to bring you. Thank you for joining me for another video, and thank you for testing the limits of vegan food with me. Until the next video, I will see you later. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos, and so that you can see when I post your recommendations, and like this video if you liked it.